All right, let's start it. Thank you everyone for your interest in today's session, 2021 State of Conversation Intelligence. Don't be shy about asking questions or adding comments in the questions tab of your GoToWebinar interface. You can ask them anytime, no need to wait until the end. This presentation is being recorded and an on-demand recording will be emailed out in the next day or so. Our speakers today are familiar Allego webinar faces, Jake Miller and Jonathan Carlson, both part of Allego's Rockstar marketing team. Jake is Allego's Senior Product Marketing Manager and a talented musician on the side. John is Allego's Senior Director of Marketing and went to the dentist yesterday, so let's all admire those pearly whites. Jake and John bring a ton of know-how and experience to this topic, so we're excited to have them presenting to us today. With that said, take it away, John.
Thanks, Greg. By the way, I'm also a musician, just in case you were curious about that. So maybe, Jake, after this, we can do a little jam session or something, and people can stick around for that.
Nice, awesome, yeah. And I go to the dentist pretty regularly myself.
It's good. So we have so much in common. This is great. Good.
Yeah.
Well, happy to see everybody here today. Awesome to have such a good crowd for what I think is a really interesting topic and one that I don't think has been talked about enough recently. State of conversation intelligence, right? We talk a lot about asynchronous communication and call coaching and artificial intelligence, but the blend of all those things is conversation intelligence, and it's this growing area that more and more companies are using and experimenting with, but I think it's an area that has yet to really be mastered by a lot of companies. So I'm going to try to dig into it today, give you guys some tips and tricks for how to utilize conversation intelligence where and when you can, and make it an effective tool for you moving forward. So Jake, you want to dive in here?
Yeah, let's go ahead.
Cool. So just one stat to kick things off. Rain Group, sales training company, recently did a survey where they discovered that 84% of buyers say that reps convey value ineffectively when selling virtually. So that's a huge problem, considering 90+% of sales are done virtually these days, especially over the past year plus since COVID hit. But more and more, even before the pandemic, many sales were going online, going virtual. So if reps aren't good at selling virtually, they're just not good at selling. Like, should we just say 84% of reps or buyers say their reps are bad at selling? Maybe we should. That's not a good stat to have. So how do you rectify this? How do you give your reps the insights and the training and the support they need, especially when they're virtual, especially when they're remote, to become effective sellers, to take advantage of the skills they have and the skills that you need for them as a manager, as a coach, for them to sell effectively and optimize their output. So Jake, let's hit the next slide. Want to kick things off with a quick definition of conversation intelligence, because this is a tool we think can really help with correcting for that pretty jarring statistic that we just absorbed. This comes directly from Forrester's, right? This isn't Allego's definition. This is Forrester's definition of conversation intelligence. Conversation intelligence can record remote conversations between buyers and sellers, right? So anytime your rep gets on a Zoom or a video conference, you want to make sure that content is recorded, right? So you can watch it later. Conversation intelligence also uses natural language processing, right, or NLP, to transcribe those conversations. So you can actually have a written transcription of everything that occurred on the call, right? A little easier sometimes to scan through a transcript than it is to watch every minute of dialogue on a call, right? That's useful for a coach, and that's useful for a rep as they sort of review their notes, right, from any given call. Where CI, I'm calling it CI, conversation intelligence, gets really interesting is by leveraging AI, or artificial intelligence, to analyze and surface insights. And it does this to support executive level decision making, inform management coaching, and to inspire the reps themselves to adopt best practices. That's 3 different levels of employee that can benefit and make decisions based off of conversation intelligence. Jake, any commentary you want to add just to how Forrester and the industry at large thinks about conversation intelligence?
Yeah, John. So that's exactly on point. Everything you said. One kind of note about conversation intelligence. A lot of folks may have heard the term revenue intelligence being a sort of a tangentially related technology, a very similar technology. Different use case, but I figure that that's just worth a quick mention. Conversation intelligence is very similar to this other term, revenue intelligence, which you might have heard, where revenue intelligence is using a similar technology, transcribing calls, using AI to parse out topics and things like that. But that technology is more geared toward forecasting and managing your pipeline. You with using these kind of technologies for revenue intelligence, you might have a list of accounts of opportunities that you're running for your Monday morning, pipeline meeting with the sales team, and you're able to quickly see whether they're emailing the rep back, and how many times has the rep actually connected with them, and it's more for like being able to say, okay, it looks like this person isn't calling you back. Should this really be in the pipeline report, right, or in the forecast? Versus conversation intelligence, which is the focus of this topic today, of this webinar, much more geared toward rep development, coaching, sharing best practices, diving into like the depths of the conversation itself to understand sales performance at that level to help kind of upskill and develop reps. So figured that was kind of worth a note to mention that.
That's a good distinction, right? There's so many of these terms flying around out there, especially in the world of sales enablement these days. It's easy to get them confused, right? It's a complex world. It's getting more complex every day. I feel like there are 10 times as many pieces of technology out there right now than there used to be. So really good to take a beat and really clarify what we're talking about. So given that definition, want to launch a quick poll, if we can, Craig, which is your business using conversation intelligence technology today? Pretty straightforward. Yes, no, or you don't know. Let's give folks just a minute to fill this out.
Curious to see how this plays out with everyone in the crowd today. This technology has become much more popular. We're getting a lot more inquiries about it in our own business, especially over the last year, because so much more of the sales process now is happening over video conference.
Yep. Yeah, it's everything has shifted pretty quickly, right? And I think what we've seen anyway is that there are some companies that have gotten to the bleeding edge of technology pretty quickly, and some that are still lagging behind, right? And just trying to retrofit what worked for them before. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a mix in these results. All right. So let's see. We've got the results here. Majority say no, 63%, and 25% say not sure, and the minority, 13%, say yes. That's not a surprise based on what we were just talking about. So this is good. I think there's a lot of room to educate folks about how conversation intelligence can help, how to apply it, how to get started with it. So we're gonna jump into all of that today. So with that, Jake, you want to take the next section away?
Yeah, totally. Just want to make sure. Okay, yeah, back on. You can see my screen.
Oh, you know what? Before you go, let's go. Let's just go to the agenda slide, and trace the path that we're going to be going through today. So, conversation intelligence in the flow of work is important. In the flow of work is important to everything we talk about at Allego. I think it's really it's necessary to think about sales enablement and training as a part of your reps' daily lives, right? You're not necessarily taking them out of their flow of work to train them, right? Get them up to speed. Yeah, you're going to need to do dedicated training sessions every now and then, but as much as possible, you want them to be learning and training and receiving coaching as they go, right? As it fits into their schedules and their lives, so that their output remains steady. So that's why we're saying the flow of work, and we kind of trace this path of what a rep's flow of work looks like, right? We go, we talk about conversation intelligence as it pertains to onboarding and training, as it pertains to coaching, launches and rollouts, content management, content creation, and then at the very end, what that actually looks like in terms of how it impacts virtual selling and the selling process. So that's the path, the journey that we're going to take today. Now, Jake, you can go ahead and dive into onboarding and training.
Awesome. Yeah. So jumping into this first one here, and like John mentioned, everybody, the path here is sort of a chronological. If you think about it from a rep's perspective, joining your company, first thing they do is they go through onboarding and training. Then they may be getting into some coaching once they're out in the field, and then they launch a new product, and then they have to do that, and they're managing the content that's getting they're sending to the customer, and then virtual selling is like right at the point of sale. There is sort of a chronological thing going on here. So that's this first section here. Yeah, onboarding and training. How does this technology help with onboarding and training? There's a couple, there's a few use cases you can think about that are sort of obvious, and then there are ones that may not be as obvious, and we'll talk about those. So the first point here is around showing what good looks like. Now, when a salesperson joins your company, I mean, the first thing they're going through is some instructor-led training and some e-learning, and they're taking self-directed, watching videos, courses, and things like that. One of the real, the biggest kind of complaints that we hear from reps going through an onboarding program is it's like, okay, it's disconnected from the realities of the field, right? I don't, it's like I'm itching to get out there. Salespeople are always action oriented, right? They don't like to sit on the sidelines. And so the challenge is, how can we take that field experience and kind of bring it into the stuff that they're learning about? Well, using this technology is such a really useful way, a really powerful way to do that. Being any folks here, I imagine you're on a webinar about conversation intelligence, the state of it. You're probably considering a technology like this, so I'm just going to assume that you may be. If you're evaluating these kinds of technologies, again, that's what we're going to talk about today, things that you should be on the lookout for. This is one of them, being able to quickly and easily take moments from the field, clip those out, enhance them quickly with maybe some knowledge checks, couple quiz questions, link off to another resource, put those into your learning paths, put those into a learning program, take that and put it into a learning recommendation engine, a playbook, for sellers as they get out into the field, right? That's how you can start to take that kind of field experience and bring it to life. And so that's an important use of this technology in the onboarding process. It's to be able to take these moments. Say you're a rep and you're going through an e-learning, and the first thing that you come across is a 5-minute clip from an actual top seller out in the field on a call, articulating a value proposition that you're going to have to be going out into the field and learning about. Or say on the first, your first day, you're focusing on, or you're on your day 2 or whatever, you're focusing on this certain product, instead of just getting videos from subject matter experts and taking quizzes. Well, you're actually also getting examples of people selling that product. It's incredibly valuable. And again, it's got to be something that's, the technology is built to be able to do that. That's why when we talk about, when I gave that kind of upfront about conversation intelligence versus kind of revenue intelligence, conversation intelligence is very focused. There's a big focus around coaching, around enablement, around training. And so that's, that you want it to be something where you can just clip those moments out, and you don't have to download the video out from the conversation intelligence part of your product and upload it into the, to your learning LMS type of product. You want to have that kind of all in one, so it's really easy to just quickly grab those moments. And we're going to talk a little more about how AI helps to assist in identifying great moments of great examples from the field. Another piece is certifications, right? When salespeople are going through, sales certification has become a huge part of onboarding, where salespeople have to articulate a value message. And maybe it's a 5-minute, whatever it might be, the corporate deck, right? The first call sales deck, and articulate that, and they're using video, or sometimes doing it in person. But one of the things about that is that it's just, if you're just articulating a message and you're not actually, testing salespeople on how much, how good are they able to, what kind of questions are they able to ask, right? Do they really get it to where they can ask pointed questions, where they can flow with a conversation and really, and ask, intelligent kind of questioning to get a prospect speaking about their business? Are they picking up on cues, little things that they're saying? This is, again, an area where this technology is really important, where you can, and we have, see lots of organizations doing this as part of the onboarding process. The manager will get on with a rep, and the manager will pretend like they're a customer. And so then they'll test the rep's ability to conduct a discovery, and that's all recorded. on using this technology, and then you can then take that and submit that as basically like a submission for your certification, where then a manager or a committee can sit and review the rep's ability to ask questions around certification, right? Again, role playing, more kind of in-depth sales skills, right? Like questioning and discovery. The third piece here, acculturation. This is another important part of any onboarding program, is ensuring that reps stay, right? Make it, new hire attrition is one of the biggest issues that we're trying to, battle with when it comes to onboarding. And acculturation is a huge kind of stopgap for ensuring reps don't fall off. And making sure that they feel part of the culture, that they feel included, that they understand the culture. Again, taking these clips from actual sales calls, you're seeing people's faces, you're understanding the voice of the customer, right, in the call. You're understanding how your fellow colleagues, whether you're again sales or even in a client, any kind of customer facing role, how people on your team articulate things with customers, how they conduct conversations, right? Seeing faces, you start to get a feel for the culture more easily. And this has been something that we've had, we've had companies tell us that, that, hey, we see a bit more we feel more a part of a team than we have in like 20 years, because we're constantly seeing each other's faces. And so this can be incredibly powerful for that.
And that's so important too, Jake, when so many new hires these days are remote, right? Like the process of getting trained and onboarded remotely for a lot of people is a brand new experience, right? They've never gone through it before. So to be able to experience everything you're just talking about, right? To actually experience live sales calls, to see people's faces, to understand how their colleagues sell, right? How their team works and what prospects are saying, like that's really, really valuable and something they wouldn't have had access to otherwise without this type of technology. So super important.
Yeah, exactly. Shadowing is like when you're, as a salesperson, that's the number one thing. You're starving for examples to be able to watch others, right? That because you're able to see, okay, like I'm hearing them, I'm learning about this stuff, but I want to see how this is actually applied. And there's just something so powerful about when you see another salesperson taking a customer and walking through a value proposition and answering questions, and you can kind of model them and like you can kind of like turn around and it's kind of stays with you for a little bit, and you can sort of like apply that right away. I mean, I've seen folks be able to like turn around and just watching a really great salesperson and sort of mirroring and modeling that, and then turning around and taking a customer. It's an incredibly powerful to be able to do that. It really just it just gives you that sort of that edge to be able to see what it actually looks like. And then finally, when folks after onboarding, when they get out in the field, recommending content, recommending learning, if this is sort of a way to give salespeople, newly onboarded reps, kind of a set of training wheels, so to speak. When they get out into the field, if a buyer says something on a call, a newer rep might miss a certain cue that was spoken about, that was given by a buyer on a call, right? And this is where you can use AI to detect that and ping the rep afterwards, hey, follow up with this piece, or here's something that you said on the call, but you should probably phrase it more like this, right? Automating that process. So now you don't have to be, as a manager or as an enablement leader, coach, you don't have to be right there with the rep every time. Again, this doesn't take away from the human touch of coaching and shadowing on calls, but for all those instances where you couldn't be on every single call with every single new hire, now you can use automation to start to ping them and give them tips and tricks and help them out once they get out into that early period out in the field, when they are when they're still really need those additional kind of training wheels.
Cool. Yeah, this is great. And the stat on this slide always gets me. I've seen it even worse. I've seen it up to 90%, but 80% of information learned is lost within 30 days if it's not reinforced. We've known this for so long, right? And yet we've taken very few steps to rectify it. So this is finally a technology that I really think can help reps retain the knowledge that they need to do their jobs. And if you can use AI recommendations like Jake is talking about here to help do that, to help automate this process, to help scale this process, you're only going to be better off for it. So it's exciting because literally, when I was working in sales training 10 years ago, 11 years ago, this was a problem then. It's not like this is a brand new problem that people are just forgetting what they learned. This has been constant for decades. For as long as people have been learning, they forget if what they learned isn't constantly reinforced in an effective way. So hopefully we're finally rectifying this, or getting to a place where we can.
Yeah, that automated reinforcement is key.
Yeah. So Jake, yeah, go ahead. I think we've got a few stories from the field scattered throughout this presentation. So take it away.
Yeah, so Global Shares, this is a software company for managing employee equity. They went totally remote after once the pandemic hit, and they had to onboard. They had a boon in business, and they had to onboard a group of reps like totally virtually, remotely. And so they did exactly this. They grabbed examples from the field. They were able to, their head of enablement was able to, take these examples, show other reps, hey, here is what it looks like. He said, I was able to show them an encyclopedia of examples of greatness out in the field, of like awesome delivery of the message, awesome questioning. And he said it was just absolutely invaluable to be able to have this resource of examples. Instead of trying to describe everything, you can eliminate so much time as a coach, as an enablement leader, as a manager, as an inside sales manager. This example was an inside sales manager, just by showing it, just pointing in the direction of a great example. And then of course using the technology to surface those examples. It's a powerful combination of stuff there. All right, so John, I'll kick it over to you for the next section.
Yeah, coaching. This is a category that's probably most commonly associated with conversation intelligence, or at least certainly call coaching and call recording. But as you can see, it's only one significant section that we're talking about today. But Jake, if you want to flip to the next slide and build it out, I probably won't go through it linearly. But if we've got coaches on the line, right, you know that you don't have enough time to train your reps, right? There's just not enough time in the day, not enough time in the week to give each individual rep on your team the attention that they need, right? And the personalization of training and coaching that they need, right? So many coaches and managers defaulting to managing a sales team as a whole, right? Because it's efficient, right? Everybody's getting the same message, they're all getting the same training, everybody should be performing the same. But deep down, we know that's not how good coaching works, right? Everybody, period, whether or not they're in sales, has different strengths and weaknesses and different ways that they learn, right? So as a coach, how do you accommodate for that? Right now, it's really hard if you don't have the right tools, especially if you're not in the same room with your team all the time. So we need to figure out how to coach at scale, specifically how to coach remotely at scale. So what conversation intelligence can help you do is, if you see the stat in the bottom right here, on average, 20% of sales calls are reviewed currently by managers. That's kind of unacceptable, right? If you have 80% of calls that are just not even being watched or touched. If you have conversation intelligence, you can boost that number to 100, because all of a sudden, all of your team's sales calls or all of their practice calls are being recorded. Not only are they being recorded, they're being analyzed, right? So conversation intelligence technology can watch a call, and it can identify coachable moments within that call, right? You can train artificial intelligence to look for certain moments in a call where really positive phrases or wording is used, right? Or where really negative scenarios occur, right? You can tell the technology what to look for, so it can flag those moments in a call, and a coach can look at those, right? It can say, oh, like here are the positive moments, here are the negative moments. Here's where I can say, great job. Here's what you should do more of, and here's where I need to really coach and say these are areas that you need to improve. The technology can automatically surface those moments to a coach, so that they don't have to watch every single minute of every single call. That's important. Your time needs to be efficiently utilized if you're a coach in these situations. So any sort of efficiency you can gain in terms of the analysis of a call, that's a plus, and conversation intelligence really helps there, right? Additionally, if you're a rep, conversation intelligence can automate content recommendations based on call topics. So it can analyze a call It can identify what topics are being discussed, and afterwards it can say, hey, I think that you should send this prospect this case study, right? Or this ebook, or whatever piece of collateral might be appropriate to that selling situation. So it can help reps advance deals without having to go through a one-to-one interaction with their coach, right? It can just keep that train moving, which is something brand new that hasn't been done before, but that again creates efficiencies and creates a more effective sales cycle. On the flip side, it can also tell reps maybe what learning or training content they should consume to get better, right? It can say, based on this call, right, X, Y, or Z piece of training content might be appropriate for you to look at, right, based on the topics that were discussed. So again, it's not just advancing the sales conversation by giving the prospect new information, it's giving the seller new information about themselves, right, and how they can improve. So two sides of the coin there that really combine to create a more, again, effective sales cycle. And across the board, as a manager, if you can start analyzing your team's calls at scale like this, and you can start getting more actionable insights to share with your team in an easier way, you can much better start to understand team-wide behaviors and replicate, again, A-player behavior, replicate what winners do. If you have conversation intelligence technology, if you have this call recording technology, as a coach, you will see A-player behavior over and over and over again, right? Really in black and white, so to speak. And you can start to see those consistent threads that carry those A-player conversations through to the close versus what everybody else is doing. You'll see it. It'll be a lot more visible to you. So all of this is about enhancing managers' ability to coach and manage and understand all of their team behaviors and dynamics in a much more nuanced and effective way. And it's also about giving reps the automated, scalable feedback that they need to improve themselves, right? So that the coaching onus is not exclusively on the coach, right? The rep takes on some of that as well. So many benefits come from using conversation intelligence to amplify coaching. Jake, I know this is a meaty topic. We've done entire webinars on coaching, but any points you want to outline here, or to supplement the points on the slide here?
Just that, it really is about, it makes it easy for you to be able to see what's going on. I just want to reiterate that. It's, that's as far as, like, for example, understanding the team-wide behaviors, it's like, okay, you can pull up a report that shows the salespeople who are in the top 20% of quota attainment, or who have the top 20%, whatever you judge that by, just raw numbers for the year, whatever it is. What topics do they speak about most? What are what are those top sellers, typical ratio of talking to listening on calls, right? It rolls it all up for you. That's the kind of the key thing here, is all of this stuff is it makes it really easy for you. So it's about, it's not just that, hey, now I've got all of this great footage and a really easy way to access all the calls. It's that it's directing you to the points within the calls. You can leave coaching right at a point within a call. You can look at a quick report and see what the top salespeople are talking about. What are they doing? So yeah, but just building on everything that you said there, John, it's absolutely on point.
All right, cool. So I think we've got another story from the field next, right?
Yeah, we do. Yep. So Quadient, a Neopost company. So this company, it's a business process automation software, and it was just this, right? They struggled with discovery, and they were able to see that sellers were sort of really sticking to just kind of sticking to a script, not really able to they listened to a couple calls, they shadowed on a couple calls, physically sitting in, and their head of enablement was able to say, okay, yeah, reps aren't really thinking on their feet. They're sort of just kind of reciting from a script. And anybody out there in the audience, you've listened to discovery calls where a seller isn't really tight on what they're trying to understand and learn from the prospect. They're just asking this. They've got their list of questions and they're going down the list. and the prospect is, giving gold, like little things, that threads that you could totally pull on and it would open up a hole, but they miss it, right? And so this is what they struggled with. And they use this technology to start to identify specific conversations that they could coach to. And then afterwards, right, they're able to say, okay, instead of just, going through and coaching reps in a role play or using video, whatever it might be, now they were able to actually jump in on actual calls and flag moments where a rep missed a cue, or didn't do a great job kind of digging into a really important topic area in the discovery. And so then they were able to leave that feedback right there, point in time. They were able to use the clips to actually show the rep, hey, here's something that you did here. You could, this could have been better. And they were able to upskill across the whole team. And as a result, they saw conversations were much more consultative. They were able to show examples to the reps who were struggling more. Here's great examples of it, and then using kind of scorecard capabilities in the platform, they were able to watch over time as the reps, abilities along these different 5 kind of key areas in a rubric on great discovery, how those improved over time. And so it's just a really, really kind of powerful way that, they wouldn't have been able to do this if it wasn't for using a technology like this.
Yeah, that's awesome. These stories are so good, and I think we've got at least one more. I find, so often I watch a webinar like this, and it gets very theoretical, right? And I think, Jake and I can fall into that trap sometimes, right? These are big ideas, right? But to ground them in these use cases where real people have used this type of technology to find success is really valuable, right? To understand that this can be done. It's not rocket science. It requires the right application of technology and process and inspiration, right, to make it work. So yeah, I love hearing about stories like that.
Yeah, that's great.
All right, let's move on to launches and rollouts. Jake.
All right. So yeah, so the next section, launches and rollouts. So in our kind of chronological order, our rep has been out in the field, they've gotten some coaching, and hey, now the new product is launching. And so how can this technology help with that? There's a lot of applications when it comes to product launch. There are some that apply that are similar to onboarding, right, where you're giving reps examples of early testing out in the field, right? A lot of times what we see organizations doing is they have some salespeople going out and pre-selling and testing out the new messaging about the new product, the new slideware, whatever it might be. And taking those examples and bringing them back into an onboarding course to a training course on the product for the other reps. Another area is certifying using scorecards, right? And again, being able to actually judge based on a real conversation, and have the rep kind of go back and forth with either a person in sales management, or someone in enablement, or even a marketer, somebody who's in charge of kind of the product positioning and messaging, being able to go back and forth and determine, hey, is this rep ready? Do they understand the value proposition? Can they ask good questions around it? Can they overcome objections, the anticipated objections that we're training them on? Being able to scour calls to grab moments that are working really well, or ones where it's examples of the new messaging that's not working well. So during that post-launch period, this is one of the most important things about a product launch, is that you launch it, but it's not just because you've hit launch day and everybody's now out in the field and you've put out your press release and you've done all your things and you've got your marketing campaigns and your sellers are out there and your business development and cold callers, they're hitting the phones. That doesn't, it should always be building in this post-launch period to kind of quickly start to see how things are working. You got to keep your finger on the pulse, because we've seen this happen so many times where organizations will send everybody out and with a certain messaging, and a particular piece of the messaging, it does not resonate at all. And then some other part that we kind of weren't, that was sort of a little more of a side note, is getting a ton of attention and is really resonating with the audience. So, and that's something that you don't know until you've launched it. And so using this technology to be able to right away monitor the situation as the product has gone out there, and in that early period to course correct quickly. Because again, as any of you know, launching products, managing organizations, it's like moving an ocean liner to make a change. And so you want to get out ahead of that as early as possible, and that's where this technology can really help. And then, of course, setting up recommendations. So that way, based on things that salespeople are saying on the calls, you can use these assistants to recommend content, to recommend here's the right case study based on this product that you want to send out. One of the things that we utilize is these specialized assistants. So you can think of, you might have a coach, an AI that's set up as a coach, a kind of personified coach for a particular new product that launches. And so that AI is trained on how to identify good messaging delivery, good question asking, which content pieces should be used, all the things around this particular product. And when the rep is, and it's scouring all the calls, and when a rep is speaking to that product in a conversation, that AI is giving, is able to monitor that. And it's a similar concept to, like, on a baseball team, you might have a batting coach and a pitching coach, and they're two totally different skill sets, right? Similar concept here, where you can start to use these specialized assistants, and for, they're recommending follow-up content, recommending, here's, you said this, maybe you should have said it more like this, and again, that's allowing you to scale your presence without having to actually be there in person for every, because you can't. That's the whole point, is you can't be following along and sitting over every single rep's shoulder. And then again, yeah, early on to course correct if needed. It's that, like I said, being able to get out ahead of those points, understand, quickly, hey, this part of this part of the messaging really resonates with this audience, and we wouldn't have expected that. To be able to then double down on that, go back and kind of make tweaks and course correcting. All right, awesome. And before I move on, anything to add there, John?
No, you really hit it. I guess if you're in the audience, you'll notice that we're hitting some of the same themes multiple times, right? But it's a good example of how these different concepts, like AI coaching or AI-based recommendations, they apply to multiple different areas within the sales enablement function, right? So it's not like each of these different areas utilizes a completely different part of conversation intelligence. It's just about reframing how you think about conversation intelligence based on what you're trying to accomplish, right? And it can help you do a lot of different things. So that's the only thing I'll say, but you covered it all, Jake. Good stuff.
Great.
Awesome. Right. So I think that leads us into the next stage of our journey, which is content management. Right? This is a bit of a different area. I know when I first thought about how conversation intelligence impacts content management, I was like, I don't really buy that. How does that work? But it's actually really useful. So Jake, if you want to build out the next slide, you think about content creation and content management. If you're a product marketer or a sales enablement professional, you're always creating content for your sales team to use, right? To help them sell better or help them learn. But often that's kind of a siloed process, and it's often based on what you or the company thinks is correct, right? You're making assumptions about the market, and you're building content based on those assumptions. Conversation intelligence can challenge those assumptions, right? And it can help you create better content because you, as a marketing or sales enablement professional, can watch calls from the field with actual prospects who are responding to the messaging that you are helping to put out into the field. And they might disagree with you, right? That content that you thought was amazing, right? That deck that you built, that you put hours into, that you thought was pinpoint perfect, might actually have fallen flat, might actually have not been as effective as you wanted. And you will hear directly from the prospect why that was, right? And what improvements you need to make, right? So you're starting to iterate on the content that you're building. You can make it better. You can make it better over time. It can improve forever, right? Until it's perfect. It probably never will be perfect, but like you will have constant access to how the market is responding to your materials in a way that you never did before, right? It's even better than asking a rep how the content performed, right? Because they're going to be biased, right? They're going to have their own emotional attachment to how a sales call went or how they think a piece of content worked. you'll hear directly from the buyer, right? So you can make better decisions based on these recorded calls. So it will help you uncover new content needs, new hot topics that maybe you didn't think about. And it will help not only you create better content, but it will help the company make better decisions about how to, about what new products they should be focusing on, what features they need to refine, everything like that, right? So it starts to expand well outside of the sales organization. It also allows you to mine meetings for messaging accuracy and content effectiveness, like we were just talking about. But messaging accuracy is important. Is the seller using the content in the way that you thought they were going to use the content, or in the way that they should use the content? Is there additional training that needs to take place on that piece of content that will help the seller be more effective as they deliver it, right? That's really important too, and really interesting. That's something we never really had access to before as content creators. When it comes to content management, we talked about recommending follow-up content, right, for sales conversations, but this comes into play here too. Sellers don't always know what content is available to them, right, to share with prospects at any given time. Sometimes it's hard for them to find appropriate content. If you have a platform that helps them with that, and they can automatically serve up intelligent recommendations as what content to share next, that helps them in their sales process, as we discussed before. And that extends into being able to create what we call agile content, right? To help, again, I'll use the term, an inside term at Allego, to help activate content. What I mean by activate content is provide sellers with context around the content that you're creating. So you don't just share a slide deck with them. You share a slide deck with a video of yourself explaining how to use it, or in this case, with a clip, potentially, of a clip from a recorded sales conversation of a seller using this piece of content really well, using it appropriately, right? Showing what good looks like and contextualizing content in order for sellers to understand it better and use it better, right? And you can start to build recommendations based off of this. You can start to build playbooks based off of this, and really robust, agile content systems that are so much more than a content repository, right? Which is what so many content management systems end up being, right? It's just a place to dump your content. This becomes like a living and breathing system where you're putting content in as a content creator, sellers are putting it out into the field, you're getting feedback back from the field via conversation intelligence, your sellers are getting recommended next best steps based on conversation intelligence, and content creators are getting all this feedback back and creating new content, new contextualization features to activate that content, right? It just becomes this awesome cycle that really turns into something completely different than what many of us are probably used to when we think about content management. Obviously, there's a lot more at play than just conversation intelligence, but conversation intelligence is sort of like the beating heart of the system, because that's where you're getting the real world interactions that help to inform the content that you're creating. So yeah, I mean, it can be counterintuitive to think about CI in this way, but if you're able to sort of, as I was able to sort of flip the way you think about content in your head, and think about it from this perspective, it opens up whole new worlds about what your content creation and activation and management system should look like in order to be the most effective it possibly can be. Jake, I leave anything out? Any glaring holes in that story there?
No, that's exactly it. It's that, you know, the content that we produce and the recommendation for what kind of content a buyer needs in a given situation, all of it is based on the sales conversation. So having that, you know, bird's eye view, being able to dive right in and see and understand how understanding that you want the voice of the prospect, the voice of the customer, right? This is how you can do that. So yeah, that's on point.
Great.
And I believe, yep, we've got a story from the field here. So Agorapulse, it's a social media listening company, and they did exactly what we're talking about here. Use this technology to understand the voice of the customer. Their marketing team, mining calls to understand, okay, what are the hot topics? What are the things that, that customers, that prospects are asking about? What topics are being spoken about? What are the kinds of objections that they're they're putting forth when our sellers are delivering the messaging. And they were able to use this to, again, instead of having to listen to, if one of their marketers had an hour to listen to calls, instead of having to spend an hour listening in on one, they could jump to the part of the call that they wanted to focus in on and understand around this particular objection or around this value prop. And they could jump right to that point, and they could listen to 5, 6 calls in the matter of the same amount of time that they would have had to listen to the whole thing if they hadn't had it broken out by the technology, by topic, by subject area. And so it was really powerful. And they were able to use that to impact all of their product positioning, and even as far as making product roadmap decisions based on stuff that they learned from this technology. And again, that impacted all of the sales content that they were putting out, and the presentation materials and everything that they were giving to the salespeople. So it's really powerful.
Nice. All right. Good. So I think as we head towards the top of the hour here, we're on our last section, which brings it all together: virtual selling, right? How do you actually apply all of this in the field? And Jake, you wanna jump into this one?
Yeah, I'll take it away for this one. So virtual selling, this is what kind of ties it all together, and this is the big change that we've seen in the world, right? It's now so much more of the sales process is happening virtually or digitally. Even in an organization where you're going to be coming back to not every company is staying fully remote, but the no matter what the situation is going forward, digital tactics are now something that's are the norm. It's what buyers want. Buyers have become much more spoiled, so to speak, being able to access these materials on their own. They don't want to have to sit and always take a call with a sales rep, right? So having a way to take some of this stuff and take it virtual, right? And maybe that is just, they don't want to have to meet in person. They want to be able to, from the comfort of their office or from their home, be able to take a call. And so that's where, this technology is so important. It's one of the core, obviously video conference selling is kind of key, helping salespeople get better at that, understanding what's going on in the conversation. Now we have, instead of a sort of a gap, right, when a seller would walk into an office and sit down and have a live conversation, and you missed out on what was going on at that point. Now we see it because it's happening over video conference because of virtual selling. So uncovering those buying signals. We've seen time and again where maybe a newer rep or even a more experienced rep missed a key signal on a call, but the technology can flag that. Or even if it's just a manager watching the call, reviewing that, and the manager spots it, and then saving a big important deal because being able to uncover those buying signals. Recommending content and materials for digital sales rooms. Digital sales rooms, this is a core technology for virtual selling. Being able to take all of your materials, you've got, we call it kind of front stage and backstage, right? Front stage is the video conference call where you're on stage as a seller. Backstage is all the content you're sharing, the stuff that you're sharing before the call as a primer, the stuff that you're sharing afterwards as a follow-up, all the things that the case studies and the materials and the business case materials that the seller is sharing in between in the period between calls. All that stuff is that backstage. And so using a digital sales room for all of that allows you to organize all that into a single space. We advocate for a single approach for virtual selling where you've got this conversation intelligence capability and it plugs right into a digital sales room. So after the call is over, the rep, every buyer they all say, can you send me a copy of the call? Can you send me a recording of this? The seller can put that right into that digital sales room, add links and chapter markers and things to make it more, digestible for the prospects. They can add, and then recommending content. So using the technology to recommend, here's a good case study to put into the digital sales room based on your conversation. Hey, the buyer just expressed an objection around this particular part of the solution. Share this white paper and put it into the digital sales room. It's incredibly powerful. Otherwise, you would have had to train the rep on what to look for every single scenario, or you would have had to have a manager or a marketer or somebody kind of following them over their shoulder. So this automates that process. Note taking. This technology is so important as far as, as a seller, you want to be able to, you don't want to have to sit and take copious notes when you're on a call. You want to be able to really engage. You don't want to have to worry that about having to take notes. It takes you away from being present in the conversation. You might miss some important things, some important cue. Maybe you look down and you miss a piece of, a body language cue that was given, right? This technology automates that note taking, brings it back to the CRM record for this call, for this opportunity, right? So now I've got, in the CRM, using this technology now in the activity history, you can see the notes, the transcript, and even a link to the recording. It's incredibly valuable. We see salespeople going back and watching these recordings again, to see what happened and to be able to just read through the notes, and then even sharing it with technical teams, sharing it with post-sale teams when the deal goes through, and now you have to transfer this over to your post-sale teams. Now you've got a record of everything that happened. It's incredibly powerful. And that's this here, accurately capturing summaries of the calls, linking back to the CRM. So these are the areas that this technology really gives you that sort of that extra arms and legs when it comes to orchestrating this new type of selling, which is incredibly important. John, anything I missed there?
No, I don't think so. I think you put it really well, right? It's a whole new set of limbs for you to work with, right? That can do things that you couldn't previously do. Automatic note taking is so critical, right? Like, you can tell when I buy a lot of different software, and I work with a lot of different sellers. You can always tell when they're actively listening to you and when they're busy taking notes or checking boxes off of their list, right? And spoiler alert, like the most effective reps are the ones who are engaging with me, who are listening to me, who are having a conversation with me. If you don't, and you're gonna do that much more often if you don't have to worry about capturing every single moment in your notepad, right? And you can have much more productive sales conversations that way. As it makes sense, right? That's how you talk to people. Selling is about human connectivity, right? It is about having human conversations. It is not about checking off all the boxes on your lists, right? If you can let the technology do that for you, and you can just focus on being a human and listening to the pain points of your prospects and offering solutions and sharing ideas and brainstorming and being a real partner to them, like that's what's gonna close the deal. So if you can focus on that stuff and the technology can take all that ancillary stuff off to the side and take care of it for you, you're going to be in a way better position as you sell in a virtual world.
Absolutely.
All righty. So I think that brings us to our summary slide, right? Which is just another way of looking at everything we just talked about, right? At Allego, we have this sales enablement wheel, we call it, right? It's a snapshot of the sales enablement landscape as we see it, all the different major components of it and how they fit together. Right, so we've got coaching, we've got onboarding, launches and rollouts, content management, virtual selling. Surprise, that's what we just talked about, right? On a seller's journey and on the sales enablement journey. And here we talk about how conversation intelligence fits right into each of them, right? So we talk about how in coaching you can provide individualized coaching at scale, right, via conversation intelligence and artificial intelligence. In onboarding, you can capture game tape moments that you can share with new hires to help them understand how to sell at this company, right? How to acculturate them and incorporate them into your company culture. In launches and rollouts, you can course correct post-launch based on observed calls. What worked and what didn't? What modifications you need to make? Content management, we talked extensively about. You can mine meetings for messaging accuracy and new ideas, new content that should be created, and ideas about how you create more effective content. And then, as Jake was just describing, virtual selling, it wraps the whole package together. You can automate note taking, better understand prospect engagement, analyze calls, surface recommendations, the whole shebang, right? So conversation intelligence fits as not just a part of, but a really important, really critical part of each of these different categories of sales enablement. So I really encourage all of you, because we know that many of you aren't using a tool, a CI tool today. And it's not saying you have to rush out and buy one, but think about it. Think about how you could implement this type of technology into your existing sales and sales enablement process, because it can really change the game, right? It can really level your sales efforts and your sales enablement efforts up a couple of levels. right? Just by flipping the switch on this type of technology and thinking about how it can improve your efforts. So, Jake, anything to say in summary before we get to a really quick Q&A?
No, I think that covers it. It's the insight engine that powers all aspects of your sales enablement. That's how to think of it.
Yeah, that's a great way to think of it. All right, so Craig, we have a couple of minutes for questions. I apologize in advance. I'm sure we're not going to be able to get to everything, but you want to at least feed us one or two before we wrap up here?
Sure. Yep. So Fred is asking if do we find that managers are using the technology a lot, and do they struggle to prioritize which calls to review?
Yeah, it's a great question. Managers definitely use conversation intelligence and call coaching frequently, right? We talked about that in the coaching section. And in terms of prioritization, I think that's where the AI component of CI comes in, right? Helping managers understand which moments in time to look at in any given sales call. You can see calls that require more attention than others based on that technology. So I think that really helps. Also, I think as you get into the rhythm of listening to and watching calls as a coach, you'll be better to start to identify trends within your team, right? Of folks who need more help and folks who don't. So you'll actually probably get a better mental model of how to prioritize your coaching time as well. Jake, anything to add on that one?
No, that's it. It's definitely a valuable tool. We see managers using it a ton. It allows you to really get that window into conversations and coach to actual moments rather than, theoretical, talking about, or, rather than having to take notes during a ride along and then play it back for the rep afterwards. Hey, you said this at this point and you probably should have said this. They're not even remembering what they said at that point. But with this, you can actually dive right in and show them, hey, remember this part here. Here's an example. Here is you actually speaking to it. Here's what I would have said. Yeah, managers using it a ton.
Awesome. And there are some other questions, but we'll go ahead and email those answers out because we are coming across to the top of the hour here. So wanted to thank everyone for joining us today. Thank you to John and Jake for the excellent presentation. As a reminder, we'll be sending out the on-demand recording once it's available for you to watch or rewatch and share with your team. And you can find more in-depth detail on the ideas discussed today and more in our new ebook, The Complete Guide to Conversation Intelligence, How to Understand Rep Performance and Enable a Winning Team. And you can download that at allego.com/convo. And as you exit today's webinar, please take a brief moment to complete the short survey. I think it's just 3 questions. Your feedback drives what these events look like in the future. And we especially are interested to know what topics you'd like to hear us cover. You can also get in touch and see more of Allego anytime on our website. You can request a demo at allego.com. We'd love to connect. And again, thank you everyone for joining us today. Have a great day.